This is CBC Vancouver News.
Highly recommended. Run, go get your shot.
BC health officials plead for more of you to get vaccinated against the flu after a third child dies from influenza-related causes.
It's not too late, and for children especially, before the first day of school next Monday, really good thing to do this weekend.
Plus,
and a huge inconvenience on a lot of people.
big smash up. Vancouver police look for a suspect after they say someone damaged more than 100 car windows. And
if you look across the province and across the country, a lot of stores have opened up and they're closing.
5 years after they opened in Vancouver, how are legal cannabis shops holding up? Good evening, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. The death of a third child from flu-related causes in BC has renewed calls for more of you to get vaccinated. The BC Centre for Disease Control says cases of the flu and RSV are rising in BC. And as Mira Baines reports, health officials say both kids and adults ought to get protected.
The latest data from the BC Centre for Disease Control shows 3 children under the age of 10 died in a 2-week span. The deaths due to complications linked to influenza.
Influenza can be a contributing factor, but one of the other things we've been seeing in BC has been secondary bacterial infections as well. Sometimes the secondary bacterial infections have been the cause of death too.
He says in an average year, there are typically 2 to 3 influenza-related deaths among children. However, last year, there were 6 deaths. The message from medical experts is to get children vaccinated as well as adults for the flu.
Highly recommended. Run, go get your shot. We're tired of getting shots, it seems. Our vaccination rates are much lower this year than they were in the pre-pandemic era and obviously during the pandemic. It's important to get your shot. It's not too late. It's our first line of defense.
Medical experts recommend the flu vaccine, especially for children 6 months to 5 years of age, as well as immunocompromised children. BC's health minister provided a few details about the latest deaths, which happened in different parts of the province.
The 3 deaths did occur in 3 different health authorities, which is important to consider. One of the deaths is under 5, 2 were between 6 and 10.
He says vaccination bookings are available across the province.
It's not too late, and for children especially, before the first day of school next Monday, really good thing to do this weekend. There are appointments available.
Respiratory season typically lasts until the end of March. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
Vancouver police are looking into a disturbing report that a man posing as a parent tried to lure a 5-year-old girl away from her daycare.
Staff at the daycare were rightly suspicious because they recognized that this person was not somebody that was known to them, and they recognized that this person was had approached in a suspicious way. And after speaking with the child's parents, they contacted the Vancouver Police Department.
Police released these sketches of the suspect and a Porsche Macan of interest that was seen in the neighborhood where the home daycare is located. It happened around 3:30 p.m. on December 13th near East Hastings and Skeena Streets. Police say the man claimed to be the father of the girl at the daycare and referred to her by name. The suspect is described as a white man in his 30s, about 6 feet tall with a medium build. Police say he appeared, quote, clean and stylish. The VPD is also trying to find a suspect after it says someone went on a car window smashing spree. Surveillance footage obtained by CBC News appears to show a person targeting cars parked at Granville and 64th, smashing windows yesterday morning. Police say more than 100 car windows were damaged in the Marpole area, as well as near Broadway and First Streets.
We believe that there may be other vehicles out there that have been damaged, and the owners possibly just don't know about it because they maybe haven't gone out to the car in the past couple of days. So at this point, we're investigating, we're pouring a lot of resources into it because we know it's a huge impact on and a huge inconvenience on a lot of people.
ICBC says it's received 18 claims so far, but says it's too soon to say what the damages will be. Police are asking anyone who hasn't yet made a report to contact them. Mounties in Prince George say a shooting near their downtown this morning has left a man with a serious gunshot wound. Police received a report about shots being fired in an encampment area known as Moccasin Flats around 8:30. Several units and police dogs flooded the area looking for suspects. The unidentified victim was taken to hospital for treatment. The serious crime unit has now taken over that case. Several inmates at 2 Fraser Valley prisons have been taken to hospital after simultaneous violent incidents. Correctional Service Canada says several inmates were attacked at Kent Prison, while several at Matsqui Prison were also hurt. 5 inmates in total were taken to hospital. Emergency health officials say 3 from Kent were in critical condition. Matsqui was put into lockdown and visits were suspended. It's not yet clear if the incidents at the prisons are connected. A heads up for commuters who travel through and near the Massey Tunnel. Repairs to the Highway 17 overpass on Highway 99 will begin on Monday. Then Highway 99 southbound and Highway 17A southbound will be closed over 3 weekends starting next Friday. The repairs to the crossing will be extensive, including demolition and installing girders. They're expected to last until early March, depending on the weather. A Highway 17 crossing was badly damaged in July after an overheight vehicle smashed into it. Labor groups and political leaders gathered in downtown today to commemorate the deaths of 4 construction workers more than 40 years ago. On January 7th, 1981, they fell to their deaths building the Bentall Center.
We must continue to learn from the incident and make changes to make sure that the workers go to work in the morning, come home at the end of the shift safe and whole.
The BC Building Trades Council says WorkSafe BC's latest numbers from 2022 show 54 construction workers died because of their jobs that year. That's the highest number in decades. About half of those deaths were long-term illnesses caused by asbestos exposure. Labor advocates say the lessons of safety, regulation, and enforcement still have not been learned decades after the Bentall tragedy. They're calling for stricter safety measures on construction sites. Here's some barge deja vu for you, this time on Vancouver Island. A wayward barge anchored in the waters off central Saanich began to drift yesterday, landing near homes along the shoreline.
So I realized it had come adrift, and within a couple minutes, it was banging off the shore.
The Coast Guard says there's no fuel on board and no marine pollution around that vessel. It says it has not received any reports of damage to the barge or nearby properties. 5 years ago, Vancouver's first 2 legal cannabis shops opened to great enthusiasm from both business owners and customers. Today, those feelings have cooled amid big markups and struggles with competitors. John Hernandez spoke with those on the front lines.
In 2019, Vancouver's so-called Green Rush finally got the green light. The first legal pot shops in Vancouver opened for business. But 5 years later, is the industry still growing as quickly as many thought it would?
If you look across the province and across the country, a lot of stores have opened up and they're closing.
Just a lot of unnecessary costs, to be honest.
Or is the rush to make money from legal weed fizzling out? We're outside Evergreen Cannabis. This was the first legal pod shop in Vancouver. We're going to talk with owner Mike Babbins to see how he's doing 5 years later.
Sit. Yeah, you want to shake your paw? Good boy. I love you so much. Yeah.
How was it when you first opened, and how does that maybe compare 5 years down the road here?
There was a lineup down the street. I was very excited about that because it was the first time we had to get a velvet rope to hold the crowd back, and I just felt the significance of the velvet rope is a big deal to me.
Come on in, let's do this.
It was a fun day. It was kind of a stressful day. It was our first time selling prepackaged cannabis.
What does the landscape sort of look like? Even just in this neighborhood, are you up against other stores now?
You know what Starbucks used to do, where they'd open up as many stores as they can around the independents and just kind of force them out? We're dealing with that right now. There are more private stores, and there are ones close to us, and they all happen to be chains with deep pockets and deals with their producers to help have, really, really good pricing and stuff. And we don't make deals like that, so we just have to do the best we can. So we keep our prices low, but it also means our markup is low. We're really, really lucky that we have such loyal customers who just like us, and they like the fact that we only have the craft bud and none of the big bud. If you look across the province and across the country, a lot of stores have opened up and they're closing. And they're stores where people weren't in the industry, they just saw on the news that there's the big green gold rush, and they put their life savings in and they failed, and they aren't surviving. And I hate seeing that, but as a store, we're basically playing the waiting game to see these other stores fail. And I don't want anyone to lose out, but I gotta take care of myself and I gotta take care of my team.
Competition has been fierce over the years. Since the first 2 legal cannabis stores opened in Vancouver in 2019, over 80 more have set up shop across the city. Aaron Richardson got his license for Sunrise Cannabis 3 years ago.
So walk me through the last, 3 years since you've switched over. Have things gone as you hoped or had planned?
Having to compete against the government retail cannabis stores because they have the monopoly on the wholesale side. They're able to obviously display a lot more product. Their prices when they opened undercut pretty much every independent retailer in the area. There's been quite a few challenges, just a lot of unnecessary costs, to be honest. There has been some hope because the government introduced a direct delivery program where we could buy directly from the producer, from the farmer, and have them ship it directly to us. But it's been largely a failed policy because there's been no financial incentive to take it on.
He says under that program, retailers pay the same 15% markup as they would when buying from government warehouses.
And so to engage with each other, a local retailer with a local producer, it costs us more to do that than it is to buy from the government monopoly.
BC has also received its fair share of cannabis excise tax from the federal government since legalization, totaling more than $170 million over 5 years. Ottawa said the expectation was that money would be shared with local communities, but municipalities have yet to see a dime.
In terms of how much it costs the city to regulate and license, what are the costs maybe being incurred at the municipal level?
We actually charge more for a cannabis business license than a typical business license, so I think there is a recuperation there. There is an ongoing conversation, though, about revenue excise tax sharing with the provincial government, 25-75 in favor of the province, but we still haven't seen any of that excise tax revenue come to local governments.
Is it frustrating that it's been 5 years down the line now and you still haven't seen a penny, essentially?
I'd say it's a constant refrain at the Union of BC Municipalities. Every year it comes up as resolutions, and every year we hear from local governments across British Columbia who are really frustrated with the rollout of that revenue tax.
Any sense of how much money City of Vancouver could be missing out on at this point?
Great question. I'd have to get back to you on that one. It probably is not insignificant, though, for sure. Vancouver's a very cannabis-friendly town, so it stands to reason that there's probably a lot of money being left on the table that we would be obliged to. Now, the province has said that they're not generating the kind of revenue that they've expected they would with legalizing pot. Seems incredulous, but maybe that's the case.
In a statement, the province said while it doesn't directly send money to local governments, it does put those dollars towards services like education and healthcare. As for costly markups for retailers, the province says it's exploring potential changes, but there's no timeline. So for now, shop owners will have to endure and hold out hope their businesses don't go up in smoke. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
The Raincoast Conservation Foundation has bought trophy hunting rights to protect animals living in a quarter of the Great Bear Rainforest. But the charity is now required to lead hunts on the land with those commercial hunting tenures.
We do take people on hunts. We have a very, I would say, particular fussy clientele, and we've just never been able to find the exact specimen that they're looking for. We have a very poor success rate. On the other hand, they get some fabulous pictures.
Raincoast has been encouraging ecotourism in the regions they hold tenure and say they will continue to buy more hunting rights. The group Hunters for BC, meanwhile, argues that move amounts to abusing commercial licensing to stifle legal hunting activities. It calls hunting a key tool in maintaining biodiversity and balance in a region. A pioneering BC First Nations leader has died. Chief Bill Cranmer of the Numgis Nation was known for his vital work to repatriate Indigenous artifacts and help sustain the Numgis culture and language. He led the repatriation of cultural objects that were taken during the potlatch ban and was a fluent speaker of Kwakwala. He advocated for cultural and language education for Indigenous peoples across BC.
Reconciliation and repatriation, these are all challenging issues. They have a lot of emotion, and they have a lot of impact on the well-being and spiritual well-being of people. But he had this steady style that just made us think about things a little bit more clear. I mean, the repatriation of the artifacts in 1980 was a prime example of saying that we needed to stay together so we remember it. But he also realized we needed a facility that was going to be able to house it without it deteriorating any further. And Bill was just really forward thinking on this clarity on what it took to solve problems, and that real solutions couldn't be at the cost of somebody else.
Bill Cranmer died earlier this week at the age of 85. A celebration of life for him will be held in Alert Bay this weekend.
A lot of refugees and a lot of migrants comes to Canada, and Canada welcomed them in open heart and open arm.
It is Tamil Heritage Month. After the break, we're going to learn what this time represents for the Tamil community here in BC. Stick around. Thanks for watching our commercial-free live stream tonight. Weeks later than usual, Mount Washington Ski Resort on Vancouver Island is finally seeing some snow. While temperatures are set to drop further, the delay has already hit local businesses. Our Claire Palmer hit the slopes to learn more.
Skies, a cold breeze, and most importantly, snow on the ground. After a slow start to the season, these skiers are happy to be on the slopes, despite the ice and the brown spots.
It's been sad when it rained and hard to see when it was cloudy, but everybody's out here having fun. So fun even when they're wet. You know?
Well, there's quite a bit less snow this year, as we see with the strong El Nino weather system. But it's definitely not bad. It's definitely skiable. I'm enjoying myself.
After some snowfall over Christmas, Mount Washington is in better shape than many mainland ski resorts. However, their snow base still only sits at 40 centimeters, when usually this time of year it should be closer to 100. But the resort says it's still business as usual.
It definitely depends day by day. Over the holiday season, we were really steady in the couple of thousands, not as busy as a typical holiday season when we do have a bit of nicer snow conditions going on. But we've definitely seen a lot of folks still coming up here to recreate in the Tube Park, get up here and just enjoy the general mountain atmosphere over the holidays.
Down in the valley, some businesses are feeling the effects of the El Nino.
We definitely saw a decline in bookings and visitation over the Christmas season, which was unfortunate just because of the snow levels. But we've moved this week actually to create a campaign that would focus on all of the other things that you can do in the region while we all wait for some snow.
The Blue Toque is a local consignment store. The owner says they've seen a downturn in sales of winter gear, with people opting instead to purchase warmer weather equipment like disc golf sets.
If we don't compare to other years, I would say it's good because we're a busy store in general. If we compare it to other years, it's not that great. But I guess like just in life in general, you're not supposed to compare things. So we'll just go along with it's doing great right now.
The forecast next week calls for colder weather and some snow. The resort says it anticipates business to pick up now that winter, as they know it, has arrived. Claire Palmer, CBC News, Courtney.
Canada is home to one of the largest Tamil diasporas in the world, with roots in the southern Indian state Tamil Nadu, Sri Lanka, and Singapore. Thousands of people in BC who are part of the Tamil community will be celebrating Tamil Heritage Month this month. Among them is Devanasan Loganathan. He is the president of the Tamil Cultural Society of BC, and he joins us now. Devanasan, thanks for being here.
Nandri, which is thank you, and Vanakkam, hello, which means Vanakkam.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that. What does Tamil Heritage Month represent for you and the wider community?
Actually, it represents a lot for us because one of the harvest festival of Tamil comes in the month of January. So not only January, April, and November. Those are the important months. Because the harvest festival, we chose January as the Tamil Heritage Month to celebrate all over the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, how many people of Tamil descent live in BC and in Canada?
Approximately about 10,000 in BC, but all over in Canada, I would say about 250,000 in Canada, mostly in Toronto and suburb of Toronto.
Why do you think so many Tamils came to Canada?
That is because after the 1980s ethnic riots in Sri Lanka, a lot of refugees and a lot of migrants comes to Canada, and Canada welcomed them in open heart and open arm. So that's the reason a lot of Tamil population outside of India and Sri Lanka lives in Canada.
How do you celebrate during Tamil Heritage Month? What are some of the big highlights?
We have a celebration in BC called Tamil Heritage and Thai Pongal celebration. We showcase cultural events. Basically, all three aspects of Tamil language, EL, Isai, Nadagam, means music, drama, and literature. We showcase all of them in one event. We alternate the cities. Last time we did it in Vancouver, and this time we are going to do it in Delta. So one of the chief guests, one of the special guests of the event is BC Housing Minister Ravi Kahlon. The Honorable Ravi Kahlon will be there. So that's the plan for this year.
And why is it important for you to share Tamil culture and heritage to a wider audience?
Oh, it is very important to have all the other audience involved in that. The reason is, I believe Tamil Canadians contributed or still continue to contribute to the cultural fabric of our society, and the inclusiveness and intercultural understanding and respect for one's neighbor, those are all important aspects of Canadian dream. So we need to showcase our values to rest of the Canada so that everybody will understand.
And if anybody wants to go to the event in Delta, when is it and where?
It's on January 27th at Genesis Theatre in Delta. We'll start at 5 o'clock and it will be run until 8 o'clock. And at the end, we'll have a sweet pongal served. That's all.
Sounds delicious
Yes.
and fun. Devanesh and Loganathan, thank you for joining us. Appreciate it.
Okay, thanks a lot.
There is a live shot of a very wet downtown Vancouver facing the North Shore, a rainy night across parts of the South Coast, and a colder weekend is upon us. Darius will have your BC-wide weather forecast right after this.
Pine beetles, mountain pine beetle in particular, is a bark beetle, and it spends most of its life underneath the bark of pine trees. And so we see the sign of those successfully attacked trees as the needles turning red, eventually becoming brown and falling off. When we see those tracks of red trees, they're not recovering, they're dead. Populations of mountain pine beetle had decreased about 98% from a height measured in 2019. And we know that there are a number of factors that have affected those populations and contributed to that decline. One of those being the cold overwintering temperatures that we've been having over the past few years. Those low -30s and -40s, even for a couple of days, are very effective at killing mountain pine beetle. Forest fires that we've experienced in the province, particularly in this past year, have taken out stands. We had active mountain pine beetle outbreaks, and also the government control efforts where they go in, identify individually affected trees, they cut those trees down, and then they burn them on the spot to remove those beetles from the population. The populations are going down, but they're not going to be zero. It is a cautious optimism, and it's also a cautionary note that mountain pine beetle isn't the only destructive forest insect on the landscape. To take action proactively when we see populations come up, limit the potential for these massive landscape altering epidemics like we saw with mountain pine beetle over these last couple of decades.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Time for our BC-wide weather forecast with science and climate specialist Darius Mahdavi. Before we get to BC, you've got a recap of what's going on with our drought situation.
Yes, so even though the provincial updates from BC have stopped, we still get the national ones every month. And so this is really a more broad-scale picture of the drought situation, and it is still quite dire. Now, in BC, it's one of the hardest hit areas by drought still. You can see the Central Prairies also not doing too hot. They do use a slightly different scale than we do here in BC, but it's the same idea, although these ones have some very nice hard numbers to go with it. So abnormally dry means that you'd see that sort of drought event every 1 in 3 years. Moderate drought, 1 in 5 years, 1 in 10 years, 1 in 20 years, 1 in 50 years. And so seeing this much of the country in this high of a drought situation, and it has been like this for at least 2 years or so now for many areas, is very much out of the ordinary and really shows, using those hard numbers, just how bad the drought situation is. So not too much improvement here in BC as compared to last month, so we'll move on now. Still a bit of precipitation coming now. We got most of it already earlier this evening here on the south coast, but a bit more still to come, and especially here in the more southeastern parts of the province, the Kootenays and Columbia, still more snow to come. That should ease off into tomorrow morning, as we saw there. But the next system rolls in late Sunday for the North Coast and the North Island, and then continues into Monday. So you can see a little bit more precipitation come to the North Island there, and that will continue to come down to the south coast. Should be a slightly wetter one Monday, although there's a chance that system does miss us. So plenty more snow still to come as those freezing levels do continue to fall. And you can see Whistler still getting a little bit more tonight, but not too much. Most of it has fallen. So nice powder day for skiers and snowboarders tomorrow. Now, in terms of temperature, we do have that Arctic air continuing to come down, so that should make it, we should hit a low on Monday in terms of temperature. Things come up a little bit more into early next week, and then, or mid next week, sorry, and then end of next week. At the moment, it seems like we get another drop in temperature, so another chance for snow then. Now, in terms of conditions, pretty calm across the province. Tomorrow, we start to ease off. Temporary high pressure system sets up into Sunday, so much drier day there. Not much precipitation other than the southeast at all Sunday, and even that should be easing off into the evening or afternoon even. And then here you can see a little bit more snow coming, most of it just overnight tonight once again. So a little bit more coming in the next few hours, but by morning we do start to dry out once again. And lastly, here are our conditions for Vancouver. We see those freezing levels fall and then come back up a little bit and expect it to fall again later next week. And you can see a little bit of chance of rain or snow on Monday. And by the time we talk next, Dan, we'll already know what happened. So can't do too much more.
Like peering into the future almost. Thanks, Darius. Have a good weekend.
You too, Dan.
That is your late news for Friday. Thank you for joining us tonight and this week. For news anytime, check our website, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is tomorrow morning at 6:30 on CBC Radio 1. And Tanya Fletcher will be in the chair for you tomorrow night at 10:30, right after hockey. Good night. Enjoy the weekend. Stay safe.